It's the end of the year, so of course, we're looking back, and today we're talking about 10 of the biggest open world games from 2018. We tried to get the best size approximation for a bunch of games and just stack them all up. So let's get started with number 10 and talk about Spider-Man. Spider-Man's game world has nothing on most of the other games on this list, only coming in at roughly 8 square miles. But while it's not ginormous, Insomniac still did a great job making a New York City. Yeah, it's not totally to scale, but it's a pretty good representation. We would know. Insomniac also did a great job at not just making NYC, but making like a Spider-Man New York City. Seeing Avengers Tower was really cool. Then you have the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange hangs out. You can find the Nelson and Murdoch law offices, even some smaller stuff like Josie's Bar and the statue of Lockjaw. Sometimes a giant, sprawling open world isn't the best open world, but it's instead one that feels natural, like Spidey's. Also, swinging around in the city is just great. I mean, come on. It's that added verticality, the fact that you can go up on high buildings, that really makes the recreation of this Manhattan feel much, much larger. But moving on to number 9, Sea of Thieves. This comes in at 11 square miles roughly, which isn't as big as some of the other games on this list, obviously, but it has an interesting world, and the vast ocean does a good job at making it feel a little bit bigger than it actually is. Obviously, you know, it's how you get around. Sailing isn't exactly fast, and depending on where you're going, it could feel like it's taken a while to get where you're going. Sea of Thieves also manages to pull off the empty world really well. It feels bigger for that. When you're sailing around with your friends, it really does feel like just you guys. And when you see a crew of other players sailing off in the distance, it's really exciting because you know someone else is out there in the distance, and it's a reminder that you aren't alone in this pretty big world. The world is also just beautiful too. The game has a very cool art style and manages to be really nice and pretty without having like crazy raw graphical power. But still, the water in this game is probably some of the best water we've seen in a video game in a long time. But next at number 8, we gotta talk about Fallout 76. It's about 16 square miles. Now, yeah, we know this game is kind of a bummer, we get it, but the map isn't totally horrible at least. We're including it for the sake of covering as much as you can. This is the biggest game worlds of 2018 list, right? Not best games of 2018. But the map itself is pretty dense. There isn't a lot of wasted space. There's usually always something to explore or discover, which we can appreciate. One thing that is really cool is that everything isn't dead with the previous Fallout games because it took place so far after the bombs dropped, there really wasn't much life left in the world. Here, there's actually some lush vegetation and some dense forests and stuff. Thanks to Fallout 76's design, the game does feel kind of lifeless and boring thanks to no NPCs. But again, size-wise, it's pretty decent. But next at number 7, we have Shadow of the Colossus. This is a world of roughly 21 square miles. Now, Bluepoint, the guys who remade this game, manages to do what Avalanche did with Mad Max, and that's taking a world that's supposed to be pretty empty and dead and barren, and making it really pleasing to look at. While there isn't much life at all, there's no denying just how beautiful this world does really look. Going from giant to giant feels like an epic journey because the distances are so long. Plus, everything from canyons to hills to trees is so much bigger than you, the character, so it does a really good job of making you feel like a little ant in a giant world. We love that. Next at number 6, we have Forza Horizon 4, clocking in at 27 square miles. This game world is awesome, and absolutely the most unique for a Forza Horizon game. The English and Scottish countryside feels vast and sprawling, and like I keep saying, it's even more impressive that you get the complete game world altered with 4 different complete seasons. And you drive fast, so you need a lot of game world, and Forza Horizon 4 provided that in spades. Now next up at number 5, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. It might not have the biggest open world on this list, but it definitely feels big, and it certainly isn't empty. Coming in at 29 square miles, this is pretty decently sized, but we think part of what makes it seem so big is the fact that getting around takes a while. Horses definitely seem a tad bit slower than the previous Red Dead. But anyway, another thing that makes the world seem so big is how lived in it feels. When you are traveling from point A to B, you're always seeing other people on the road in passing, or you're being stopped by someone asking for help, or someone trying to rob you. Then there are town folks that actually have a routine and their own personality, and they go about their day-to-day lives. You can also run into an NPC you met on the trail hours later in a random giant city like Saint-Denis. It really does feel like a big lived-in world where there is stuff happening every day. Like a lot of these games on this list, sometimes it's not about raw square mileage, but it's about how vast it really feels. And getting lost in the wild, wild west here is awesome. Now at number 4, we have The Crew 2, which is a very big game, if not a little disappointing. It's hard to nail down an exact number, but The Crew 2 feels really big. Apparently, according to some, it can take up to like a half an hour to drive across the whole thing. That should put it in perspective for you, because if you don't know, The Crew 2 gives you a condensed United States as one big open world map. So in theory, you can drive across country from New York to California and all the places in between, up and down. It's cool in theory, even if the game sort of disappointed us here. Still, the size is what counts here, so it's definitely a win. But next up at number 3, we got Far Cry 5 coming in at 31 square miles. Hope County, Montana is a really beautifully crafted American countryside here. Lush forests, tall mountains, murderous bears, there's a lot to see. I will say it was weird at first playing a Far Cry game that didn't take place somewhere tropical-ish, like in the last entries in the mainline games, but I gotta say that Ubisoft did a good job here. The map is full of side activities to do, like racing, stunt driving, hunting, and side quests. Each of the big 3 areas all felt different too, which was nice. It did a good job of letting you know that you were in a completely different area, and that helps it feel that much bigger. The game world itself, though, was very hectic, if that's the right way to describe it. There's always something going on in this game. You can't walk 2 feet without getting shot at by crazy cult members or just being set on fire by a bear that is also on fire, but at least you have plenty of room to run around, right? Now coming down to number 2, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which has a world that is approximately 80.7 square miles large. If you played this, you know this is a big ass game, and it feels big. There was always something to do and somewhere to go. When you're sailing out in the open seas, you can see different islands and land masses, and you could go to any of them, and some of them are just so big with their own unique cities and towns that you could spend so much time on just one particular landmass. Some people might say that there's a little too much in Odyssey. A lot of it does feel pretty diverse though. There were a lot of side quests that had you doing a lot of the same stuff, but the narrative around it all made it feel different. Plus, the world was so big that there was actually more to explore sometimes than you could actually see. There were caves, underwater caves and ruins, shipwrecks, hidden temple crypt-like things. Odyssey really wants you to not blast through the main quest and take your time and see everything that the world has to offer. And in terms of sheer size and stuff in it, it definitely succeeded there. But now, coming down to number 1, we have Just Cause 4, which comes in at 395 square miles. It's absolutely freaking huge. Just Cause games are known for this, really. It's about having a giant playground to cruise across on a fighter jet and then backflip out of it and then wingsuit glide away. It needs a lot of room to flex its muscles. Just Cause 4 brings in tons more biomes and variety, with snow, tropical, desert, forest. You get everything, along with really massive and impressive weather effects that kind of change the game. This is a big ass world, and even if some of it is filler or window dressing, when you're flying up to the clouds, it's always really impressive when you look down. I mean, how crazy are video games? Those are some of the biggest worlds of 2018, but fret not, we got more. Some bonus games. We have Kingdom Come Deliverance, the RPG, that's roughly 10 miles. We have the game Scum, that's pretty big. Conan Exiles released this year on consoles, and that's got a big-ass MMO-style world for you. And State of Decay 2. It's comprised of 3 separate maps, but each one is the size of the original game, so you're getting at least 16, 17 miles out of that. But regardless, those are what we thought were some of the biggest game worlds of 2018, so we want to hear from you guys in the comments. Which was your favorite? Do you always think that size is most important when it comes to an open world game? Let's talk about any of this stuff down in the comments. We want to know. It's an interesting conversation to have. But if you learned a thing or two, clicking the like button really helps us out. We appreciate it. But if you're new, you should consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.